Regular City Commission meeting to order. I'll begin our meeting with the invocation and pledge, if you please. Father, thank you for this community and thank you for this commission and the leadership and the employees of our city. Lord, I thank you for our country and the freedoms that it gives us. Lord, I ask that you be with us today as we attend to the city's business. Give us the wisdom to make decisions that benefit our city both today and in the future. Give us the wisdom to do things that are pleasing to you. As always, I ask you to be at the leaderships both through the state and through our government throughout the world. That we find ways to better improve society and find ways to peaceful solutions to conflict. Lord, I ask you to be with our military men and women who are defending our freedoms both here and abroad. Keep them safe. Be with their families. Give them strength. Be with our first responders as they tend to our needs as we begin the travel season and holiday seasons coming up. Just give them the strength and the wisdom to perform their jobs well. All these things I ask in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to ask any attending citizens who are in the audience who'd like to address the commission but aren't on the agenda to please step forward.
Hello, Mayor, Commissioners. It's me, Connie Martinez. I'd just like to introduce y'all to our new employee. As you know, Kathy Wick retired from the city after 30 years of service back in March, and we have a new employee to fill in with her position. So,
I'm Cassie Walters, and I'm going to be the municipal court clerk for the police department up front, and I'm very excited for this new journey that I'm going to be on.
Okay.
Well, welcome aboard, Cassie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To the city.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eduardo Valdez. First, I would like to thank the city commissioners and city officials for allowing for the live streaming of the city commissioners meeting. Now it is possible for citizens who are elderly, disabled, or simply cannot make it to the meetings either due to work or life in general. Today, I will be speaking broadly about the negative externalities of car-dependent infrastructure and a few solutions that we as a community can take on. The Reverend McGowan of Dumas once said, "How wife and I would enjoy getting in a buggy and driving over that territory again. A car is too fast, can't identify places." There is truth to what the Reverend had to say about this new lifestyle that he found himself in the early 20th century. When you go at high speeds, your field of vision gets narrower, right? And with the orthodox thinking of our State Department of Transportation is that you need a certain amount of clearance from the sides and whatnot. And for example, there is a new stop sign at North 6th and Main, and I have a picture of it, but I need to print it out. But for a minute there, they had the old stop sign with a new stop sign that TxDOT had put in, and this new stop sign's like about 10 feet, feels like 10 feet tall, compared to the old one, much bigger. And what that does is it incentivizes drivers they see that sign and the sign is around the area, these tall, big signs for the stores and whatnot. And what does that signal to a driver? That signals that, hey, this is a place that's meant for high speeds. Their priority is traffic throughput, not a place to be, a place to drive through, not a destination. Most of our cities and towns today are anywhere USA, meaning that there is usually nothing distinctive that separates a city from another suburban strip mall 1,000 miles across the country. Take Soncy and Amarillo and place it in the suburbs of Dallas. It fits in. Take Georgia Street and place it in the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia. It fits in. It is not only a cosmetic issue, there are many real consequences that come with car dependency, such as an isolated environment for the elderly and disabled residents, decline of small businesses, and noise pollution. On the financial side of it, there are problems such as a high barrier for small business owners due to parking lot requirements. Car-dependent cities are costlier for cities to spread out, or due to spread out services. For example, the fire department has more area to cover. more police coverage, further routes for the Postal Service, more asphalt, and more fire hydrants per capita. Some examples are a article I read from a former Amarillo City Councilman as he was leaving his spot. He wrote an article for the Amarillo Globe News around 2015, citing the lack of spending for infrastructure upkeep. The exact numbers were like, for your main arterial road, your Santis or Georgia, it's like every 30 years or something is like the ideal rate you want to go in terms of basic upkeep. But he cited that the way it is currently proposed, or the way it works in the budget, is that really, in reality, it's every 90 years as what they can afford. This past month, or last month in March, no, 2 months ago, the Amarillo City Council considered issuing $59 million in debt. Most of it was for drainage upgrades due to the flooding the year before. And that's another problem, that there's a cost associated with car dependency that people might not think about up front, is that we have so much parking lot. When you have parking lots that are twice or thrice as big as the building itself, that water has to go somewhere. And that's why you see these flash flooding problems in car-dependent places. You know, we're in the high plains where, on average, you get Amarillo's like 19, 22, 21 inches of rain per year. So, if I like to use Amarillo, Amsterdam as an example. Amsterdam is 20% smaller. It's like 84 square kilometers. Amarillo is 103 square kilometers. And Amarillo's population is 200,000, while Amsterdam's population is 800,000. That means that Amsterdam has a taxable population that's 4 times larger than Amarillo, yet it is still smaller than Amarillo. And that's why when people propose things, nice things, you may get pushback from city officials and whatnot saying, oh, we can't afford this. We can't afford these nice things. When in reality, car dependency is eating our budget and eating everything, our possibilities of what we can do. For example, think about the new parking spots on the west side of the hospital. It was around $50,000 to get that built. And they had to remove trees, which I enjoyed using because I work at the post office. And I have to walk or sometimes take my scooter all the way down. So now those trees aren't there. There's a great analysis company called Urban 3. They look at larger cities and they compare your mixed suburbs to your downtown areas. And when they put a graph to it in terms of what it costs to upkeep and the cost of service and what they pay in taxes, it's often negative for the spread out low dense areas. And then you look at the places with high density, the city makes a return on it. I hope to convince you on taking a different approach when dealing with future development in our city. For example, the new apartment complex currently being built within the business park. A business park which has no sidewalks, but rather a wide and bare street which encourages high speeds. Another example, these are just like stuff that you can tinker with, not necessarily be permanent. For example, I may lose some of y'all here, but a 3-lane conversion of Maddox from a 3 lanes, so a center turn lane and 2 lanes, one for each direction. And some of y'all may think, well, like, isn't it going to get congested? Well, there are examples and studies of other cities who have converted similar arterial roads from a 4-lane to a 3-lane, and they found it's actually more efficient because you have that center turn lane in there. And emergency services also benefit because they can just use that center turn lane. And then you have that freed up space to either do parking or bicycle lanes and wider sidewalks, which I think is even more prescient considering that we have new elementary schools on Maddox. If you have that down to a 3-lane, you can also do a roundabout at 14th and Maddox, so that, the intersection near the YMCA. Considering that we have kids who will be walking around there, and honestly, no one likes a 4-way stop sign. It can be hectic sometimes because you naturally slow traffic down. I'm not saying put a huge statue in the middle, but it can be just little. They do it where little hard plastic that goes up like that, barely, so that if you have a large truck coming through, they can just go over it.
So, Eduardo, and I don't want to cut you short, but on 10 minutes, and I want to be respectful of the people's time. Is there a way that you could get these proposals? I'm not saying you're wrong or right or anything, but these proposals maybe to the city management and street department, so that we can start looking at those and maybe we can get them on a future agenda to have a conversation about. Because I'm not saying they're bad. We can't make a decision today, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time.
Yes, I understand. Well, and one more thing on that. I talked about this to the Dumas Downtown Association, and with the US DOT, there's a new program called SS4A, Safe Streets for All. It's a 90% federal match from the government, and what it does is the community has to take on a project and say, hey, we found these hot spots where there has been accidents, pedestrian, motor, or whatnot, and they create a plan, and then you present it to the SS4A, and then there's that phase, and the next phase would be receiving funding to put that plan into an effect. Yeah.
Awesome, yeah, and like I said, and I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. But if you could get those, those trouble areas you're talking about and some of your ideas to the city, and maybe they can start formulating plans and maybe setting some priorities, then we can address it in a more formal setting.
All right, well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Eduardo. All right, anybody else? All right, we'll move on. To the consent agenda, item number 1 and 2 are to consider the approval of the April 16th, 2024 regular city commission meeting minutes. And item number 2 is to consider the approval of paying of the bills.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as is.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as proposed. All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Move on to our formal sessions. Due to the inability to complete from the clerk's side, we are moving our items number 1 and 2 to a special session next week. So we'll move on to item number 3. Consider the approval of 2024 Police Memorial Week proclamation. Chief Pippins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, gentlemen of the commission. So in 1962, President Kennedy established National Police Memorial Day, and then Congress later on that year established National Police Memorial Week to commemorate the sacrifices that have been made by police officers in the past, those who gave the ultimate sacrifice in the defense of their communities and in the areas that they were protecting. And so, and keeping with that tradition, we began a police memorial last year in Dumas. We like to continue that this year. This is an effort by the law enforcement agencies in Moore County, and it's been led by the police department and the sheriff's office. Police Memorial Day will be celebrated on the 15th, which is next Wednesday, and with a memorial service that's going to be held down at McDade Park around 9:30 in the morning. If you don't mind, I'll just get some ready.
Thank you.
And so here's the program. And what we were hoping is, what we were hoping this year, we reached out to the mayor and also the county judge, and hoping that they would consider a proclamation and establishing Police Memorial Day in the city of Dumas and in the county of Moore. So we're hoping that the commission would agree to that, and if the mayor would sign that, and we'd greatly honored if all of you were to come, and if the mayor were to read that proclamation at the memorial service next Wednesday morning.
I have no issues with that. Any questions, concerns? So,
I'll make a motion, we approve the 2024 Police Memorial Week. Proclamation.
I'll second it.
It's been approved and seconded that we approve the 2024 Police Memorial Week proclamation as presented. All those in favor raise their right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
What time?
9:30 in the morning. And it's going to be on the south end of McDade Park. And we've got it on our, we'll continue to advertise. We're asking the public to please join us. The Moore County Sheriff's Office, us, Cactus, Sunray, and other law enforcement agencies, the Department of Public Safety. We're going to especially honor Trooper Steve Booth, who died in the line of service back in the early 90s. Their special focus.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Item number 4 is to consider the approval of resolution number 24-05, setting a date, time, and place for a public hearing on the proposed annexation of property. Javier?
Mayor, Commissioners, we're here today for the resolution to set a meeting date for the annexation of the property set on form here for the new truck stop wanting to come in.
Do we have any proposed time and dates?
June 4th at 11:30.
I'll make a motion.
Place to be here?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 24-05
And I'll second
presented.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve resolution number 24-05, setting the date, time, and place as June 4th at 11:30 here at the City Commission room. All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Javier. Item number 5 is to consider approval of resolution number 24-06, promoting financial education. So it's my pleasure to speak on behalf of this. May is known as Financial Education Month, particularly 529 month, as a tool to save for college education. As I represent the city of Dumas as mayor, I also represent my firm as the state co-chair for our grassroots task force, which focuses on legislation that helps individuals across America in terms of financial literacy, financial services issues. One of the major issues we've identified is the lack of knowledge that most people have and the availability for college education savings and financial literacy. And so we wanted to propose a proclamation to the commission. I also have asked some stakeholders in the community to be here in support. I'd like to thank the Dumas Independent School District and Stan Strobel for supporting this proclamation, Larry Reisling and Reed Reisling of Edward Jones for supporting this proclamation. I've asked several other stakeholders in the community who like the idea but were unable to attend. So this is something that affects every person. I appreciate the stakeholders in our community for stepping forward. This resolution reads, whereas 529 month is dedicated to improving awareness around the 529 Education Savings Program in effort to ensure all Americans have the financial resources to afford higher education, and whereas the designation of 529 month helps raise public awareness about the importance of financial planning for the pursuit of higher education in Dumas, Texas, and whereas over 40% of adults feel they are not saving enough for education, and whereas only 34% of surveyed respondents were able to correctly identify a 529 plan as an education savings tool, whereas only 25% of adults with children have enrolled in a 529 plan, whereas 60% of consumers cannot answer as to why they aren't enrolled into a 529 plan, and whereas financial education can play a critical role in making sure Americans understand the benefits of 529 plans and help ensure that they have a comprehensive plan for covering educational expenses. Therefore, be it resolved, the City of Dumas, Texas aims to prioritize and provide access to financial education training to increase awareness about Education Savings Plan. Be it further resolved that Dumas, Texas encourages expanded access to 529 financial education resources, and whereas the City of Dumas, Texas encourages agencies, public and private institutions, regional agencies, and community organizations to facilitate instruction, activities, and initiatives that contribute to developing and enhancing 529 savings plans for academic success. Be it finally resolved, the Mayor of the City of Dumas hereby proclaims May 24th as 529 Awareness Month in Dumas, Texas. That's a proclamation. We'll approve it later. I wanted to ask any of the stakeholders here who, if you had anything you want to say, you definitely don't have to, but if you wanted to say anything, you're more than welcome. Okay. Like I said, I believe this is very important. I see it in my line of work every day. People are unprepared. So, any questions or concerns from the commission?
No, I would make a motion, we approve the resolution 24-06.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 24-06 promoting financial education in this proclamation. All those in favor raise your right hand and say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. On another note, the City of Dumas does provide financial 529s for their participation for the employees that are interested in participating. So I do thank the City of Dumas for providing that. All right, we'll move on. So items number 6 and 7, pursuant with the Texas Open Meetings Act, a closed session of the City of Dumas City Commission is hereby announced on May 7th. After this meeting, or after we finish the last 2 of the formal session, to consult with attorney in a matter in which the attorney's duty to government body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional contact conflicts with this chapter and section 55.1.072 to discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, sale, or value of real property in public discussion of such would not be in the best interest of city's bargaining position. We'll discuss these 2 in a closed session, and then we'll come back out and finish those conversations after that. So we will move on to item number 8, which is to consider the approval of state-funded license plate reading cameras. Rick, our Chief Rick Pippin.
Thank you, Mayor, and gentlemen of the commission. All right, so for the past few months, we've talked with the Panhandle Auto Burglary and Theft Unit, who has been leading the way in this area on pursuing a grant from the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles to the Motor Vehicle Prevention Authority. I think I said that right. And so it has to do with a really wide-ranging project and all over the Panhandle. I'm going to do my best to sort of present this in a general way and then answer a few questions. However, I did bring some backup with me today. I have Commander Patrick McBroom, who is the Panhandle Auto Burglary and Theft Unit Commander, with me today, and also Cameron Lewis, who is with Flock Safety, the vendor on this project. And I think this project now, if I'm not mistaken, Commander, is now reached in excess all over the Panhandle of over $500,000. Yes, is that correct? $520,000. So essentially what this is a project that they're working with different jurisdictions, cities and counties all over the Panhandle to install license plate reading cameras. And there's all sorts of different kinds, but these particular cameras are fixed cameras. They'll be placed in fixed locations at certain places, depending if you're a city or county, generally speaking, where there's ingress into your jurisdiction. And so when we first started looking at this project, we were thinking a little smaller toward having a couple of cameras in the city, one on the south end of Dumas Avenue that pointed to the south, and another one on the north end of Dumas Avenue that pointed to the north, and that would let us know when vehicles that were in this database, which contains a number of different things, stolen, wanted, silver alert, amber alert vehicles, any vehicle associated with those things. And we would get an automatic alert if those vehicles entered in to our jurisdiction. And so as we began to look at this a little closer, these cameras obviously are very expensive pieces of equipment. They're expensive, and they're expensive to a certain extent, to a certain degree, to operate. However, the grant funding that they have managed to get from the state is at 100%. It's in for the current fiscal year. And so what that means is that all of the cameras, the purchase and installation and operation of these cameras for the rest of the year would be at zero cost to any of the jurisdictions. And so beginning with the next fiscal year, which for us would be in October, then our portion would be around 20 to 21% for the operation of each camera per year. And so we began to look at these things from the standpoint of what would we do if we could cover all ingress to the city, and we expanded the possibilities to there's at least 6 different ways to get into Dumas. And so much like the county has done, Moore County is also another jurisdiction that's involved in this project, and they're actually going to have 10 cameras at 9 different locations in the county to be able to cover all the ingress into the county. And so same way these cameras are operating in Amarillo and in other areas. Cactus, the city of Cactus is going to place 2 cameras, for instance, in their jurisdiction. So for the first year, which is the current year that we're in, there's going to be no cost at all to the city if we decide to do this. And then beyond this year, beginning next year, it'll be roughly around $600 per camera, maybe slightly more. So I think for us to be able to operate 6 cameras in the next fiscal year and beyond, it would be around $3,600. I think the exact figure is closer to 38, is it not? That's correct, yes. Okay. And so around $3,800 a year to be able to operate these 6 cameras. And what do? Well, they transparently and in the background, they record every single vehicle that comes in to the city of Dumas. They record the license plate through OCR recognition capabilities, and they record and take a picture of the car and the license plate, not of anybody. No, there's no personal identifying information involved in this system. But they take a picture of the vehicle, the picture of the license plate, they record the date, the time, down to the second when that vehicle comes into this jurisdiction, and it runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And it operates in the background. No one has to do anything. It's not labor intensive. We literally don't have to lift a finger. But if anybody in this particular database, and I would say it's not only our database locally that would be contributing to a larger data set, we would have local data. We would know who was coming into the city, but also we would contribute to a larger data set that the jurisdictions in the Panhandle would contribute to, and then by extension, a larger data set across the country. So we would share our data that we captured here, and then we would be able to access data that was captured literally everywhere else in the country for jurisdictions that participated. It's not something that this is not something that the public or private corporations can enter into. This is strictly for law enforcement information only, and is to be used only for that purpose. So it is a very good public safety tool, a very good crime fighting tool, not only for us, but locally, especially as it's connected to the City of Amarillo Crime Information Center. This sharing of information will be beneficial, we think, to all the jurisdictions involved. So I sent some information along to you with, there was some general ideas about how these cameras work, and I don't want to try to just overload you with information now, but that's the general overview. There may be some questions. What happens if we don't want that many cameras? We can get as many cameras or no cameras as you direct. You know, whatever you feel the most comfortable with. What happens if we decide that we don't want to afford the $3,800 in the future? We can, there's no questions asked. We can ask them to come get some of their cameras, as many as we want, and we'll operate as many as the commission feels comfortable with. We are not the grantee. The grantee is the Panhandle Auto Burglary and Theft Task Unit that's attached to the 47th District Attorney's Office. Our payments would not be made to Flock Safety. Our payments would be made to the 47th DA. And then they, as the grantee, and the theft unit as a grantee, would then pay the vendor year to year. What happens if the DMV stops completely with their grant funding? Well, if there was no grant funding forthcoming, then we would be on the hook for the entire amount for each camera if we decided to keep them. We do not have to keep them because we are not the grantee. We could ask them to come get a few, we could ask them to come get all of them, and we could opt out. So we have no obligation to continue at any time, or we have no obligation to continue at any level at any time. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm sure you may, and I'll try to do my best to answer, but that's the reason I've got these guys with me today.
So if we're gonna, you know, I get it's free today, but in the future, $3,800 a year, right?
Yes, sir.
As long as grant. So in order for us to make an educated decision whether this is worth it or not, that's not a lot of money, of course, but is there some sort of report or something that is gonna be presented saying, you know, how many, if any, were helped, you know, recovery of stolen vehicles or anything? Is there gonna be any kind of report that we get?
Yes, sir. I've already drafted a policy for the police department to operate, you know, rules and guidance for the officers and how to use that. But in addition to the policy for the officers to operate, the policy also directs that an annual report be presented to commission each year for what Commander?
So since we are grant funded through the state, we have to report quarterly on stats. So we'll have to pull the stats from the chief every quarter and submit those to the state. So yeah.
So, but as far as we will present information to commission as often as commission directs, but our current policy as drafted says that we will come back to once a year to give you an update on how the program is working.
Who takes care of the maintenance and if one of these cameras go out?
Cameron Lewis from Flock Safety. Thank you, Mayor and Commission, for letting me join you today. So Flock maintains the hardware, the software of the devices. They are solar powered and LTE powered, so there is no infrastructure that is needed from the city to install and maintain the poles. So in the event that a camera is downed, Flock technicians will come out and perform the service on those devices. So there's no lift on the city IT, city utilities department to maintain the devices.
All the equipment's leased equipment. There's no purchase of any equipment.
And all that's included in that $3,800 a year?
Correct. Yeah.
So would it be a true statement? So
That is for 6 cameras.
6 cameras.
For 6 cameras, if we had 4 cameras, it would be if we had 1 camera, it would be like $600. But the 3,800 is considering if we had all 6 cameras that were.
Which is your recommendation?
So these don't technically fight crime within our city limits. It's people coming in and out of the community, or possibly bringing a stolen vehicle, or
Depending on the location of the cameras, that it could actually be very beneficial to fight crime within the city. Absolutely.
because I read one thing in here, it talked about on a domestic call. An officer went out, it was brought up, came across, he just passed that vehicle. But if these are on the edges of town, that's my question. How does that help fight crime within our city limits if they're all pointing away?
The chief.
Well, that's a good question. And so that's a system that there are mobile devices that are out there, but we're talking about fixed. So how can it help us? Let's say that we had something like that. We had an assault that took place, and somebody drove off in a red Ram pickup truck. then we would get an idea. If we didn't have any idea at all who it was, we could check the system from the standpoint of how many red Ram pickup trucks have come into the city of Dumas, in this particular time period. And we could try to narrow it down, from there. Now, that is, if someone was in the city of Dumas and never left the city limits at all, then I could say in that particular case, then yeah, it may be limited in what it could do. But the likelihood is of, people do leave the city limits of Dumas at one place or another at those 6 different places. And so if that particular type of vehicle did go in and out of the city, then we would catch it. Then it would be a tool to be able to help us. It's not going to help us in every single case. So, but you're exactly right. This was a case that you're talking about where somebody had a LPR camera that was mobile on their vehicles. And we literally, the Axon cameras that we have now are capable of doing that very thing with the software upgrade. You could actually do that, and it's a completely different system.
So how fast do you get the data back, like in the instance you're talking about?
So in this particular case, what happens, and we spoke about this earlier, there is an app that all of the officers will have. They can get it on their phones. They can get it on their email. So all of the officers' emails, including mine, and for those that opt in, their telephones, they will get an email and a text message that a vehicle it's almost instant, is it not?
10 to 15 seconds.
Yeah.
So
And so it's very quick.
taking image of that vehicle, running it against the TCIC, NCIC database for wanted vehicles, and then giving that alert to officers that are in the field. Like Chief mentioned, you can access it on your desktop. You can access it on your mobile phone through the mobile app. Officers can sign up to get real-time alerts via email, text message, and being a web-based app, you can access it when you're sitting in the police department or if you're in your vehicle on your laptop in vehicle. So it's and then 10 to 15 seconds of getting that alert.
Not only all the officers that happened to be there that were operating that day would get the alert. And anybody that happened to be at their computer, or if they signed up on their telephone, their cell phone, they would get it on their cell phone alert.
So a lot of it's more of a broad community effort for the region, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
It's the way these cameras would function.
Yes, sir. And another thing too is we share a lot of resources, of course, throughout the Panhandle, and unfortunately, we share a lot of criminals. And between us and the city of Amarillo and Canyon and Cactus and Sunray and Moore County and Potter and Randall, we deal a lot with the same people. And so being able to access their data and vice versa is really advantageous for us to be able, because we do share those individuals. And they're transient, they move, from place to place doing their illicit business, just like other people do their business, and so it's an advantage for us to be able to have that information locally.
That's all the questions I had.
I would make a motion that we approve the state-funded license plate reading cameras.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve state-funded license plate reading cameras as presented. All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item number 9, which is consider the approval of adding financial director's name to all city financial accounts. Ray?
Sir, this is, now that we have Shannon here, we need her to get on some of these accounts. We've brought you some of these before, and all we need to do is get y'all's approval and get it on the minutes so we can provide that to these bank accounts and add her to these different accounts.
I think that probably makes sense. So I'll make a motion that, I move that we add Shannon's name, our current financial director's name, to all city financial financial accounts. Sorry, I'm struggling today.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve adding the financial director's name to all city financial accounts. All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move into our closed session. Closed session, it is 12:10.